So we'll move on to a totally different thing. We have spoken about mental health, we have spoken about physical health, and now we come to something which is a mix of both, and that is gardening. I welcome Mr. Nitish Srivastava here. He is an engineer from IIT and also done his IIM from IMM alumnus, and he left his career, engineering career, to actually pursue farming and set up a 10-acre farm at near Kanakpura, almost Kaglipura, to set up with a wife, Dr. Mukta Srivastava, who's an ophthalmologist and a BOS member. And I have personally visited the farm many times, and every time I go there, it's rejuvenating for me because it's so fresh and the vegetables are look so nutritious as compared to what it is. And so many of the members, when I put it up, asked me that, can we set up a garden with vegetables at our house, home gardening, and can someone give us tips and everything like that? So I'll welcome Mr. Nitish to this Bangalore Ophthalmic Society, and it's a privilege to have you here. And we would definitely like to learn from you and your experience from it. And he has actually also got something to do a live demonstration. So any questions he's willing to take up. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Firstly, thank you, Dr. Rajesh, for giving me this opportunity to present to this august audience, uh, and also to the BOSS community. I would also like to thank my wife, Dr. Mukta, who pushed me for this. I was not, I'm not a very person who likes presenting and all that. So she pushed me for this, and so I would like to thank her. And also, she's been a constant source of support for me. Uh, what I will cover today is basically a bit of about what has been my journey in this, and also some tips about how we can use these hydroponic techniques in our homes. So, as Dr. Rajesh mentioned, I have spent around 18 years in the corporate industry. I spent around 18 years in the corporate industry, in the IT industry, primarily in solution consulting and implementation in India and abroad. And by the time I was around 40, the thought process was, let's do something different. Let's do something entrepreneurial. Till when will I be stuck in a 9 to 5 job? And that was around the time that we went to Kenya and we saw these wonderful rose farms, which are spread over hundreds of hectares, right? Where roses are grown in polyhouses, long-stemmed roses, and they time the production of the roses as per Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Father's Day, etc. So that was very intriguing as to how they are able to do this. And from that time, from there, this entire idea germinated that let's do something related to agriculture in India. Let's see how we can get these new and modern methods of agriculture into India and see how we can use them for vegetable production. Because most of the vegetables that we get, we do not know from where it is coming, right? What is the water that is being used for them to grow them? What is the chemicals that are being sprayed on them? So there's a lot of doubt. So the idea was that let's set up a modern farm wherein we use clean water, we use the best techniques to give you healthy vegetables. So with that idea, we set up 24 karat veggies. Another thing that we were very clear on was that we wanted to do protected cultivation. So we wanted to do the cultivation inside polyhouses so that we are not dependent on the weather, right? Because when when your crop is exposed to rain and the atmosphere, then one single shower can destroy a complete crop. So we wanted to have year-round cultivation, so that's why we went for polyhouse-based cultivation. So with that, we set up this 10-acre farm on the outskirts of Bangalore, which has around 2.5 acres of polyhouses at present, and we took up cultivation of vegetables. Before we get into hydroponics, it's very important to understand why has this thing of hydroponics come about. So if you look at the structure of a plant, basically there are two zones in a plant. You have a root system and a shoot system. The shoot system's purpose is food production, fruit production. So it's primarily these two. So produce food and produce fruit or seeds for propagation that is there. And the root system, its main purpose is to pull in the water and nutrients, right? Uh, the main nutrients that, if you do analysis of a plant, right? If you take a plant and then you do a complete detailed chemical analysis of the dry matter in a plant, what you'll find is that the major things are carbon, hydrogen, uh, and nitrogen, right? These are the carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. These are the four main things that are there. Now, what are the micronutrients that are used by a plant? Firstly, it's nitrogen, right? Nitrogen is present in all the amino acids. So nitrogen is very important for your foliage growth, for the vegetative growth. Phosphorus, it helps in your root growth, while potassium is important for your flowering and fruiting. So it's important that all these three are available in the required proportion to the plant, because if they are not available in the required proportion, the plant will tell you either through various symptoms. Other than these three macronutrients, the other nutrients that are required are magnesium and calcium. Magnesium is present in your chlorophyll, which helps in the food production, and calcium is there in the cell walls. So, for a fruit or for the plant to remain straight, it requires calcium in the proper proportion. And then you have trace elements, sulfur, iron, manganese, molybdenum, copper, etc. These function more as catalysts for the various processes that happen within the plant. So, what is hydroponics and how did it come about? So, hydroponics is not a new science, right? Hydroponics has been around for hundreds and thousands of years. All of us have heard about the ancient wonder of hanging gardens of Babylon. That was based on hydroponics. Okay. In modern times, hydroponics grew in popularity with this around the time of the Second World War in the Pacific region, where it was used for growing crops, and more so in the 1950s and 60s, once the plastic revolution came about. Various plastic gadgets and pipes and all those production of that started. That's when hydroponics really grew in popularity. The main areas where it grew was in Israel and Holland, where a lot of research happened, where a lot of experiments happened as to how we can use hydroponics, and later in the US. So, what are the advantages of using hydroponics? Firstly, it's faster growth. In hydroponics, what we do is you're providing nutrients directly to the root zone, right? So the plant doesn't need to waste its energy on growing an extensive root zone. With a much smaller root, it can get all the nutrients that it requires and grow much faster. So this helps the plant to grow much faster. Second, another key advantage of hydroponics is it focuses on reusing of water. Or even if it is, even if you're using medium-based hydroponics where where you're putting water into the medium, it's a very small quantity of water that is used. Only what the plant requires and no excess. Third, because of the high yield and the space that is required for hydroponics is much lesser, right? So to produce the same kg of fruit, you require much less area. And lastly, since you're not growing in soil, you don't have any weeds to pull out, and there is no competition for your plant as such. So your plant is not competing with weeds for nutrition or sunlight or anything else. So now let's just go through what are the different techniques of hydroponics and what are the relative advantages, disadvantages of each one of them. We have primarily 4 techniques, and there are others, smaller modifications that are available. I'll talk about them as well. Firstly, we have deep water culture, right? So in deep water culture, what you have is you have huge troughs of which contain water, which has a nutrient solution, and in those troughs, over those troughs, you have a styrofoam board in which holes are made, and you have your seedlings which are placed in those holes. And the roots, they dip into the nutrient solution, take the nutrients, and that's how they grow. You have these huge farms in Holland wherein, it's the size of a huge, larger than an Olympic swimming pool, and you will have plants at various stages at various levels. So at one level you'll have all seedling stage, Then it comes to the 6-leaf stage, 12-leaf stage, and then finally what is nearing your harvest. And they are moved serially from one stage to another. So that way, it remains in continuous circulation kind of a thing. So next is nutrient film technique. So in this you have huge horizontal pipes, long horizontal pipes, which are slightly inclined, and you have holes in these pipes in which plugs are placed, net pots are placed, and the roots are continuously dipping into a nutrient solution. And these are also used for hydroponics. Now, these are the two main water-based techniques that are used, and there are two advantages as well as disadvantages. One is these can be used on a large scale, primarily on a large scale. The disadvantage is in most of these, because of the continuous presence of water, you have a risk of algae formation, you have a risk of fungal formation, fungal spores spreading, and once a fungal spore enters into the system, it will result in a very fast death of the entire crop in one go, right? There are ways you can prevent that. You can either use hydrogen peroxide into your solution, introduce a small concentration of that, or you can use aerators which will pump in oxygen into the water. This will help, help reduce the algae formation, etc. But at the same time, if you're doing it on a commercial scale, it's quite expensive to do this. At a home level, we can do this. We have a small kit as well, which we can demonstrate to you, which you can use. But again, the productivity from this is less, and at a home level. And the other disadvantage is that it requires constant electricity, because the water needs to be in motion. If your water remains still, it will result in infection. A third, just one more point with regard to deep water culture. So this has another variant which has come in called aquaculture. So where in these water troughs, what you have is you introduce fish into them. So your fish grow along with your crops. So the fish droppings, they help in fertilizing the water, adding nutrients to the water, and the plants use those nutrients as well. So you end up with actually two crops. But again, it requires very, very careful monitoring of your temperature, of pH, of EC, which is the electrical conductivity. Any large variation in any of these will result in plant death, animal death. So you have to be very careful. Okay, now the next technique is aeroponics. Aeroponics is a technique wherein wherein the root is enclosed in a sealed chamber, and the root is continuously misted with a nutrient solution, right? So this is another technique. This is the most modern technique, but then it is not being used on a commercial scale as yet. It is primarily in labs and experimental purposes that this technique is used. Now, the technique that I would recommend for home gardens is primarily medium-based hydroponics, where we grow the crops in a medium like sterile medium like coco peat. Right? Coco peat is primarily coconut powder. Other than that, there are other mediums like perlite, rock wool, etc. But what is available in India and especially in Bangalore and the south easily is coco peat. So coco peat is what we can use to make small troughs. It can be a trough in any kind of a plastic container. It can be a grow bag. It can be a 2-liter Pepsi bottle cut in half. You can use that to make a container, or any other plastic thing can be used to make your troughs to grow your plants. We primarily focus on palak. So this chart depicts the various stages through which it grows. Firstly, you raise the seedlings. So you have seed trays. You grow your plants to a 2-leaf or 4-leaf stage. Once your root volume is developed, then you uproot the plug and you put it into these troughs. So here we have planted these in these troughs, and then it goes through these various stages of growth, and finally you get the end product. For home hydroponics, what are the suitable crops, right? Primarily leafy greens is what I would suggest most of people to start off with, because these are easier to grow and secondly, they have a much smaller growing cycle. If you take any leafy green, you can get your produce in a span of 35 to 40 days. If you try something like cucumbers or tomatoes, which are other well-suited crops, tomatoes will take 70 to 75 days for your first product, right? And I am sure that all of us will busy with our professional lives. We will find it a little frustrating waiting for 70 days to get our first fruit, right? We want things fast. So I would suggest, if you want to try it at home, try leafy greens. These are easier to do. They come faster, and you will have your first product in around 25 to 30 days. Other than that, your herbs, basil, mint, coriander, all these come well. Kale is something that grows very well in hydroponics in coco peat. We have had quite a bit of success with kale. Cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, they can be grown in pots, but what we need to be aware of is that these plants would require a support for your stem region, because the stem is much longer in this, so you would need to have support for them, right? You will get side branches, etc. So you would need to keep tying that up. So if you are prepared to do that effort, if you have space, if you have the height to go available, then you can go for these plants. Strawberries is another plant that does well, but again, strawberries is not something that I would recommend from a home gardening system perspective. So if you have to set up hydroponics at home, what should we do? How do we go about it? Firstly, it's important to choose what is the system that we want to use, right? As I mentioned earlier, we have a possibility of doing it in water-based or medium-based. Location, we need to choose a location which gets adequate sunlight. It should not be full direct sunlight as well. Probably diffuse sunlight is what is preferable. Good air circulation, that's very important, right? If the place has stagnant air, it will result in more infections. Third, you need to have a nutrient solution. The medium that you are going to be using, right, be it coco peat or rock wool or perlite or whatever, these mediums have no nutrient of their own. Unlike soil, any piece of soil that you take, it does have some nutrient of its own. So coco peat does not have any nutrient of its own, so you would need to add in the nutrients. So that is something that you need to be careful of. Lastly, you need to monitor it. You need to look at your plants. You need to see what they are telling you, because the plants will tell you if they have too much nitrogen, they will tell you that. If they have too much phosphorus, they will tell you that. If they have too little of something, they will tell you. You need to look at them, you need to understand that, and then accordingly diagnose it. Let me just show you so this is a fertilizer calculation that is done for that you use for palak, right? And it covers all the various elements that a plant requires. Now for home gardens, it's obviously difficult to do this, but the reason for showing this is, now this is the quantity in grams that is used in 100 liters of water. So using that, we make a stock solution, and then this is further diluted at the rate of 10 ml in a liter. So what I'm trying to say is that it's a very, very small quantity that we need to use. We use too much quantity of these for nutrient solutions, and you will burn the plant. So it's 10 ml in a liter, and these measurements is the parts per million of nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. that the plant needs to grow. Okay. Advantages of using nutrient solution is that you can tailor the nutrient to the stage of growth of the plant. Okay. So for example, when it's in the initial stage, when you put in a seed till it germinates, for the first 5 to 7 days, you don't need to provide any fertilizer. the seed has enough food within it for the initial growth. As soon as you have 2 to 4 leaves is the stage at which you start adding fertilizers. And at that stage, what you need to have is a fertilizer which has more phosphorus and nitrogen, because you want the vegetative growth. It's only after the plant has established itself that you would like to add in more of potassium in it. So it's not like in the first stage there is zero potassium. There is potassium, but in a lower proportion. Once the plant is established and is ready to start flowering and fruiting, that's the time that you increase the proportion of potassium to help that. So in hydroponics, you have the advantage of using of tailoring this as per your needs. Now this is a very interesting chart. It shows you the symptoms of deficiencies, right? So if you're nitrogen deficient, if your soil is nitrogen deficient, or if your medium is nitrogen deficient, you will see that your leaves are turning yellow. If your phosphorus is deficient, then your leaves will be darker than usual, and so on and so forth. For each element, there is a particular symptom that your leaf will show if it's deficient. Similarly, there is another chart where we have what happens if there is a toxicity. If any element is present in more proportion than what is required, it will also show it up. The leaves will also show that. So that's why monitoring your leaves, monitoring your plants is very important. Now, coming to the next point, we have very little time, so I'm just trying to rush and cover the important aspects. Another thing that we often face is pests and diseases, right? No matter where you keep your plants, pests will get attracted to it. Diseases will come. It's up to us to develop a regimen which helps us to prevent the pests from pest population from increasing too much, as well as from the disease from spreading. So common pests are usually things like aphids, thrips, spider mites. These are small, very, very small sub-millimeter, micron levels pests. There's a very useful app called Magnifier which you can download on your phones. And using that, using your phone's camera, you can observe the underside of the leaves and you'll be able to observe these pests, right? What these pests do is they suck the sap from the leaves. So it is sucking all the food from the leaves and it is restricting the growth. And what also happens is that if there is a fungal infection in one plant, these pests travel from one plant to another plant. They will take the spores from one plant, spread it to the other plant. So that's why it's very important to keep these under control. Fungus gnats are very small flies which affect the root zone primarily. They lay their eggs in the cocopeat, in the medium, and then the larvae, they feed on the roots, restrict the growth of the roots, and your plant growth is restricted. White flies are your small white flies which again, suck the sap, move from plant to plant. In terms of diseases, primarily these are fungal diseases. So you have something called Pythium, which will cause your plant death. So you have a small plant, your seed, it germinates well. You come to the 4-leaf, 6-leaf stage, and then suddenly it dies back. Right? I mean, those who have done gardening or would have observed that at times. That happens because of this fungal infection called Pythium. Another thing that you may notice is you have a plant which has been growing well, and then suddenly it will develop some spots on its leaves and it dies out. So that is due to mildew, powdery as well as downy. And then you have various types of blights, anthracnose, etc., which affect your leaves. So you get spots on the leaves. Now the reason that these leaf spots are dangerous or are detrimental to the plants is any spot on the leaf is reducing the area of food growth. Right? So that's why you need to control that, because a spot on the leaves means that much less surface area that the plant has to grow food, make its food. So what are the common chemicals that we can use? That these are present in most of our houses, right? Which we can use to control these pests. Neem oil is something which is very effective from insect prevention perspective, as well as, you know, it has its own fungicidal properties. So it is effective from both perspectives. A mild soap solution. So you take a shampoo, make a very diluted solution of your shampoo. You can use that. Hydrogen peroxide, it's available in your regular chemist shop. You can use that. Excuse me. Or baking soda. Now for each of these, what I would very, very strongly recommend is, please use a extremely diluted solution initially and do a test spray. Do a test spray on a leaf or on a plant before you apply it more widely, because you would need to use a little bit of trial and error to see what is the strength of solution that is required. If the solution is too strong, it will end up burning your leaves, right? Another thing that I would like to mention is, it's not that, if you spray too much, then you're going to get rid of the pests immediately. You need to be consistent with your sprays. These sprays need to happen every 3 days. Okay, every 2 to 3 days you would need to spray it. If you do it, it's not that you spray it once and it's going to be gone. These insects, these pests have their life cycle, right? From the adult, and they have a very short life cycle. It spreads over 6 days, 8 days. And in that, they hatch from the eggs, they go into the larval stage, they mature, hatch their eggs and die. So, and most of these solutions, they will attack the pest at one stage of its life, right? So you would need to repeat it over a period of a week, and probably what you can also do is have it as a regimen in your garden, that once a week you do a spray, a generic spray, so that your plants are safe. So, few tips for success. What I would suggest is, start simple. Take up a simple crop, start with that, get success with that, get confidence with that, and then go for a different crop. Monitor closely. This is very important. You need to spend time with your plants. You need to observe them. You need to see whether the leaves are straight, whether they are showing any yellowing, whether the veins are showing up, any spots coming on them, and then see what is the cause and diagnose that. Try out different things. Be it from a nutrient perspective, either you can make your own nutrients. Nowadays you have a lot of videos of how you can use banana peels, onion peels to make your own nutrients. You can try that. Or you can use store-bought nutrients. We can help you with that. And lastly, enjoy the process. Gardening is fun. You can use that. Okay, conclusion. These are just some photos of our farm which I would like to show you. These are all grown at the farm and not touched up with Photoshop or anything. Another thing that I would like to say is that so far we have not spent a rupee on marketing. Not a single rupee has been spent on marketing. The way we have gone about establishing our product is only on the strength of a product. We've got some samples for you which you can take with you. When I initially went to the shops and I said that we want you to keep our palak, and you have to sell this at 50 rupees a pack. They said, sir, are you crazy? Nobody is going to buy palak for 50 rupees for 200 grams. I am selling 10 rupees a bunch. I told him, you just keep it. If it doesn't sell, I will come and collect it tomorrow morning. He said, okay, keep it. I have no problem. Next day morning, he was calling me, sir, when can you bring me more packets? Because the way we do our palak is, you get only leaves. Okay, so there is no cleaning that you need to do. Nothing. It's just pure leaves, perfect leaves. Each leaf is hand-picked. So you are not wasting any time in cleaning. You have the assurance that it is grown in clean water. You have the assurance that it is pesticide, it has zero pesticide residue, because we have got our products tested by IIHR. They have tested it for around 200 different pesticides and chemicals, and they have not found any trace of a residue of any of these chemicals on this. So with that, I would like to just end with, gardening adds years to your lives and life to your years. So thank you. Any questions if you have? if you're setting up a, see, it depends on what is your idea. If you want to make it commercially successful, sorry to say that a 40 to 60 plot will not be commercially viable. For it to be commercially viable, you do need a larger space. 1 acre, yes, you can do it. 1 acre, it would involve an investment of around 55 to 60 lakhs. Because you have an investment for the structure, then you have an investment for your whatever method of growing are you going to use. You will have an investment for power. You will have an investment for water source. So all of those investments will come in.
Home gardening 40 by 60 is fine.
Home gardening is fine. Home gardening is fine.
What 40 60 effect on the roof?
It'll keep it cooler, right? It'll keep it cooler. I mean, you would need to have some sort of waterproofing done for the roof. If your roof is well waterproofed, you can easily do it. It would help to probably, you get this shade net cloth, so you can use some sort of a structure to put a this is around 50% transparent, so it will let some amount of sunlight to come in, but not the full harsh sunlight. So that will be helpful.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
We have lot of flower waste, sort of used flowers. I
Okay.
want to know how to utilize it properly as manure, or how to convert it proper manure thing.
Okay. See,
Do we have to dry it first, then do it, or
No,
like
you
just
don't
the
do-
procedure?
you do not need to dry it. So we also extensively, use composting in our farm.
This,
So basically, what you need to do is you need to have it in layers, and there is one mix that comes. I'm just forgetting it. It's a very cheap mix. It comes for around 20 rupees a bottle. So that has a microbial mix in it. So you add that, and you just keep it covered. So keep
cover,
at
means a wider area you put it and then cover, or plastic bags you can keep it, or how do you?
I would suggest you do not use plastic, because plastic will, does degrade, right?
So
And
take
you will
a
have
big container and keep
You can,
putting
yeah. You
in
can
that.
either use a very thick plastic, so you can use a plastic drum in which you keep putting it, and just keep layering it. So you add your waste, add a thin layer of soil, then add waste, add a thin layer of soil. It will take time. It will take 3 to 4 months for the decomposition process to get
Can
complete.
keep on adding it every week.
Keep adding it. Once it's full, just leave it for 2 to 3 months. Then you can.
And this mix you said has to be added
Yes.
every time you put a
No,
fresh.
just once if you do it and you add it, it should be good enough.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. How about this banana peels? We have to dry it up, or
No.
directly we can?
Directly, you can add it to. You can just keep it in water for around a week. That's what I've seen on YouTube. I have not tried it myself.
Okay.
So 3 days is enough. Okay.
And just no need to dilute the water. Directly we can.
Yeah, I think ma'am has tried it, so you can just check it. I have not tried it myself. I've just seen these videos on YouTube, but I've not tried that.
I also had seen in YouTube. But I recommend to dry it up, powder it, add some antifungal, then use it.
Okay.
Sir, what about bigger pests like bandicoots and rats and things like that, which if you have a vegetable garden, most of them, attack it
Ma'am,
at some point in time.
There is a rat trap which comes, which is called black cat. Please use that. I've been using it at my farm and at my home. It's very effective, but it will kill the bandit. It might kill it in a messy way as well, but it is very effective.
It's not a real cat.
It's not a real cat. It's a rat. It's a trap which comes.
Okay,
So
thank
you get it on Amazon. I've tried to use a lot of things, baits, poison, all of that. But the only thing that has been effective is this. Other things have
Size
not
doesn't matter because they are
Size
small
doesn't
rats. Okay.
been. Size doesn't matter.
Thank you.
For all your big bandicoots and big rats, this is the most effective one.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nitesh. And this has been a very fruitful talk. I'm sure a lot of us have learned, and we can go back and you can always contact him.
Yes.
And think he has also gotten some. I've been using his palak from many years now, and I can vouch for it definitely. And he's got some samples which you can, some of you can take back and try it. And I'm sure you'll be ordering more then. Thank you so much. Can I request MS Ravindra sir to please hand over the gift? We have the inauguration in some time at 11:30, so all of you can join us at the inauguration. Thank you. Thanks, but I missed it. No, video recorded.